And welcome back, New York sports fans, to another episode of New York State of Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct view for all of the sports. It is a collab edition today, as I'm joined by my good friend Neil from Carolina Sports Update. We got a series to break down beginning Sunday afternoon in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's the Devils and the Hurricanes. The Stanley Cup playoffs gets underway. These two teams meeting for the sixth time in their history. Carolina's had the upper hand, and this year Carolina had the upper hand in the Metro, second in the division. The Devils were third, but we know in the Stanley Cup playoffs, they throw records out the window. We'll talk about the strengths of both these teams. Keep an eye on those penalty kills. We'll talk about that. The stars for both of these teams. The coaching matchup, I think, is really intriguing. Rod Brindamore and Sheldon Keefe. We'll get into X Factor. We'll get into predictions. We'll get into basically everything Devils Hurricanes is what we're going to dive into. And we're excited. Both of us share the same day during the week on IE Sports Radio. We're both on Mondays, which is really cool. So stay tuned for some awesome Devils Hurricane coverage after a quick word from our sponsors. We'll be back to talk Stanley Cup playoffs in just a few minutes here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all IE Sports.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clinking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
Hey there, there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
And of course, welcome back to a special edition of New York State of Sports here on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. Thank you again to our awesome sponsors, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, great snack to have during the Stanley Cup playoffs. Of course, check out some Vital Apparel, great gym wear for a great cause and mental health research. Seal the Deal Wax Seals for those awesome weddings and parties. Of course, hopefully nobody scheduled your wedding and party during the Stanley Cup playoffs, but if they did, I'm sure they got cool invitations for it. And of course, all of our shows, regional shows, sports shows every day here on IE Sports Radio, including Neil's, which we'll get into in a second, iesportsradio.com, show pages. We got bios on all our hosts. It's fantastic. Of course, check out our newest sponsor as well, Raw Nutrition Supplements. Go to getrawnutrition.com, get the promo code, use the promo code IESR to get 10% off your purchase. So check that out today. You can follow me on X at NY State Sports IE, show account, as well as my account at Buccaneer555. Again, for both our shows, the Supporters Club, it's great, $5 a month to get some awesome content and be a part of our IE Sports Radio family, which we greatly appreciate it. So joining me, as you can see here on the screen, we got a special Devils Hurricanes collaboration show. And joining me is the host of Carolina Sports Update, which you can hear every Monday at 5 Eastern here on the network. He comes on a few hours after me. Neil is in the house. Neil, how are you today? So while we wait for, I'm just going to tell you while we wait for Neil, I think Neil might have froze up a little bit. Of course, you could follow Neil at Carolina SP up _IE. That's the Carolina X account, and at UNC Navy 03. That is where you can find him. So just a little bit of background on Devils Hurricanes. Again, you can scroll the schedule here. I think we got Neil back. Neil, you there?
Yeah. Sorry about that, man. I have no idea what's going on. I got full signal on my own computer, and then my StreamYard keeps like going in and out.
No, you're good. Well, happy to have you aboard. So we're scrolling the schedule on the screen. Game 1 is going to be Sunday, 3 o'clock Eastern on ESPN. Game 2, Tuesday at 6. Weird time for hockey games, 6 p.m. Eastern, but that's the way the Stanley Cup schedule works. That's on ESPN. Game 3, a little bit later in the evening, but it'll be Friday night at 8 back in New Jersey on TBS, and then Game 4 next Sunday at 3:30 on TBS. So looking at this matchup, Neil, before we dive into some X's and O's, what are your initial thoughts on it between the Canes and the Devils? What stands out to you?
Hey, Ricky, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk about this matchup. But if you had asked me like a week or so ago, like when this matchup was kind of game finalized, I would have been pretty excited for the Hurricanes. They were on a pretty good streak, but lately they've run into a series of losses that I don't want to say inexplicable, but they didn't finish the season very strong. They lost their last 3 in a row. I think they're 1-8 in their last 9. So kind of, I won't say limping into the playoffs, but not the Hurricanes that we saw coming out of the trade deadline. So that's got me a little concerned. I think as far as the matchup goes, throughout the season, Carolina's kind of shown I think they have the offensive firepower a lot of times to get this done. I've talked about a couple times on my show where you watch the Canes, it seems like if they're scoring 3 or getting that, crossing that 3 or more mark, that threshold, and getting into the 4 goals a game and scoring at a consistent rate, they have a pretty good chance to win their match. You don't see a lot of wins when they get into those like lower scoring, tighter contests, like your 2-1 type games, but start getting up into the 4 or 5, and typically they've been winning those. But these last few games, it's been a little bit of a turnaround. They lost their last game of the season to the Senators 7-5. That was after going up on the Senators 5-2. I think it's 5-3, and allowed the Senators back into it, and they ended up dropping that game. So some concern there. Honestly, kind of one of the strengths that you saw for them throughout the season looks like it's starting to wane a little bit. So that's kind of got me a little concerned.
Yeah, I think the crazy part is the last time we saw this Carolina team look complete, they eliminated the Rangers, which was the 7-3 win on April 12th. I don't know. A lot of that could be, like you said, this matchup has been kind of known, not official, but we've kind of known this is going to happen for the last 2 weeks. Which it's got to be weird for any kind of team where you're trying to find something and you're playing against desperate teams. Washington was trying to clinch the President's Trophy. Toronto's trying to clinch seeding. Montreal's trying to clinch a playoff spot. So it's tough.
Which they did against the Canes.
Right, which is tough to do with different motivations for each of those teams. New Jersey's been kind of that way too, in the fact that it's kind of been known the Devils clinched the playoff spot about a week to go, but you kind of knew throughout the course of the year that they were going to get in. They got off to a really good start, kind of faded a little bit mid-year with the Markstrom injury. Then they had the Jack Hughes injury. And I don't know if they're necessarily limping into the playoffs. They've also lost 3 out of 4 out of 5, really. So both these teams trying to figure some things out, which makes for some interesting drama. And I think that we'll get into the X's and O's in a little bit, but I think both these teams, the first game obviously going to be very crucial to see who can kind of rewrite the motivation. But I'm interested on this Hurricanes team, Neil, because I remember at the end of last year and they lost to the Rangers, everyone wondered what this core is going to look like. Was this the last run for this group? And they bounced back in a big way, and they even have had some shakeups, as you mentioned. They get Mikko Rantanen, then they deal away Mikko Rantanen because Mikko Rantanen doesn't want to be there anymore.
Yeah.
What have you made of this team post Rantanen and that whole trade deadline saga?
Yeah, so I look at this over and kind of like broke it down to, like you just said, kind of like a 2-phase Rantanen experience. So, they brought him in looking to get that scoring up, and I don't think personally, just kind of outside, I don't want to say outside looking in, but kind of looking at how it played out over his, I think, 13 games there wasn't exactly what they were looking for. I don't know if that was just motivation on his part to, I don't want to say his heart wasn't in it, but, he was, I don't think he was as fired up playing for the Hurricanes as he was playing in Colorado, even, or and then eventually in Dallas. I think he had 13 games. I think he had 5 goals, maybe 4 assists over those games. So averaged about 0.46 points per game during that time. And so, decent but not great situation. And then, like you just alluded to, whether or not he actually wanted to stay in North Carolina, where he wanted to play for the Hurricanes. There's, talks, rumors, like his girlfriend had some influence on that as well. So I think he was looking to leave really as soon as he got there. My understanding is Carolina was ready to make a competitive offer to him and keep him there, but he just wasn't interested and opted for the Dallas offer. And then to me, after he had left and Carolina, brought in a couple other folks, I feel like some sneaky good trades. You had Mark Jankowski came over from the Nashville Predators for a 5th round pick, and then in the Rantanen trade, we brought in Logan Stankoven. I thought both those guys have been some pretty sneaky good trades where they've contributed pretty well. They're not top scorers, but they've put in some good goals. Jankowski in particular, over I think his first 6 to 8 game stretch, had 2 games with 2 goals in each of those games. Has scored 8 goals in his 13 games with the Hurricanes. So it almost felt like a relief of sorts after the Rantanen trade to Dallas, where felt like things picked up, and we saw that from then, kind of right before the trade, all the way through the trade, and into when was it? Late March, I think, where Carolina was on a tear. I think they had won 8 games in a row, had a really good 8-game streak going. And I think it was just a kind of a shot and a jolt to help move them forward after that trade, after the second Rantanen trade.
Yeah, I think both these teams have kind of had different identities over the course of the season, because you mentioned the stuff with Rantanen and the trade deadline. Devils didn't really do a lot at the trade deadline, but that's a big thing post Jack Hughes is now a reliance on Nico Hischier, who had a really good season. Jesper Bratt was fantastic for this team this year. The key to me is going to be secondary scoring from the other lines. They have playoff experience on the roster, and it comes to a guy like Andre Palat, this time at the Lightning. That's a player I think to keep an eye on. But I think the big thing for them is going to be the return of Dougie Hamilton on defense. Dougie Hamilton came back in the final game against the Red Wings, got some playing time. We'll see how Sheldon Keefe uses him on the power play or the penalty kill. But to have an experienced guy like that on your defense, and we'll get into Carolina and how great their defense is, you kind of have to match, especially against a Carolina team that takes a lot of shots. You're going to need a guy like Hamilton who can be that maybe scoring on the defensive side, because they've found ways to score in weird ways. Stefan Noesen had a career year scoring for New Jersey. This guy matches career high really early in the year. Can he keep that going? We'll see. I would think we'd be more optimistic if Jack Hughes was with the Devils, but in a way, it also kind of creates a really underdog mentality, Neil, for this team, because everywhere I'm seeing, Carolina looks like the prohibitive favorite, which I don't know what's the vibe down there, but I've barely seen maybe a couple of experts pick the Devils in this series.
No, I think you're probably right. I think most people are probably leaning toward Carolina in this, if only for, like I mentioned, their offensive abilities. But like I said, opening this up and kind of my initial thoughts on the matchup, if they can't slow down the Devils, and if the Devils can, get in and frustrate Carolina's offense, I think they have a really good shot at that, at the series. I think you're right. I think, the Devils come in with that underdog mentality, can, like you mentioned before, setting the tone in these first 2 games in Carolina. So they can come in and hit hard right away, then and kind of set the tone in favor of New Jersey. I think you're right. I think you have the advantage of that underdog fight from behind position.
Which has got to be a blessing in disguise for Sheldon Keefe, because this is a guy coming from Toronto, where if you lose in the first round, you get fired. At least here, I think we'll get into coaching later, but I think he's done a really good job coaching up this young team and trying to realize their potential. But looking at this matchup, and we'll dive into strengths and weaknesses here. both these teams 2-2 in the regular season. These teams will meet for the sixth time in the playoffs. Carolina's won the last four, including a 5-game series in 23. Both these teams top 2 in penalty kill in the NHL this year. So not going to be easy to score on the power play. But we know Carolina's got the Devils have a good power play, but Carolina, they love to shoot the puck. They've got a most shots per game in the league this year at 31. So when you look at this matchup, what do you think Carolina is going to exploit the most, and what's their weakness?
I think you're right there. Took the words out of my mouth. First in shot attempts, but also first in generating. Read it up. First in generating both low, medium, and high risk shot opportunities. So not only like first in shot attempts, they're first in every range, every category of shot attempts. So, like you said, they love to shoot the puck. They really push that offense forward. They are, however, 20th, I think it is, in 5th or in 5-on-5, just straight up 5-on-5 scoring percentage. So, a little bit further down, but still very competitive there. Now, the counter to that too is they're also first in shot attempts against. So they allow a lot of shot attempts as well. I know it kind of talked a little bit about the defense. For me, that's been kind of, I don't want to call it a weakness, but a bit of a suspect area. They are first in the penalty kill, but as far as looking at kind of what they allow in high danger, high risk shot opportunities for opposing team, they are 22nd in allowing high danger, high risk shots from the opposing team. So, and their 5-on-5 save percentage for goaltending is 31st in the league. So that's where I go back and look at, why I think it's kind of played out through the season, seeing these games where you see, as long as they're, scoring and kind of like staying ahead, they can usually outscore. If they can outscore the other team in a high scoring situation, they usually fare pretty well. But it's when you start getting to those lower scoring ones, like if your defense can frustrate and slow down the Hurricanes offense, then you've got a pretty good shot at, getting, 2 or 3 goals in, and then limiting the Hurricanes. They're also, I'll save some of the power play stuff for later, but it's been an interesting lineup for Carolina, I think, between their pretty high-powered offense and defense that seems to kind of come and go.
Which is interesting because you look at Carolina, when you've got veteran like Brett Burns there, Jacob Slavin, like they've got very good defensemen. So I'm really interested in seeing the special teams in this series. I think for me, I think the weakness for New Jersey, to me, like I said, is if Hischier and Bratt aren't scoring, can they find other ways to score? I'm looking at the goal leaders for the four matchups this season. Nobody had more than 2. And only 3 guys did: Bratt, Palat, and Hischier. Besides Bratt, nobody had more than 3 points against the Canes. Bratt, I think, had about 7. Stefan Noesen and Palat had 3. When you look at Carolina, meanwhile, Jack Roslovic had 3 goals against the Devils this year. Jonathan Blake had 2, and Sebastian Aho had 2. But the thing was points. 6 different players had 3 or more points in those 4 matchups for Carolina, and only 4 players had a minus rating. So when you look at a plus-minus rating like that, to me, that stood out in a big way. So I think Carolina has more depth than New Jersey does. But when you look at the postseason, to me, I think this is a series that Markstrom has to steal, and that's why the Devils went out and traded for him. You look at Markstrom this season, 8th in the league in goals against average at 2.5, and that was with missing part of the year due to injury. He's faced Carolina 3 times, 2-1 with a 2.35 goals against. Not bad, but they're going to need that number to be, I think, low 2 at best to win this series. But from what I remember last year with the Rangers, and of course, actually Carolina played the Islanders and Rangers last year, so it's only fitting you get the trifecta in 3 straight playoff series, playoff 3 New York teams. But Kochetkov and Anderson, and I think that's where Carolina lost that Rangers series last year, because especially that third period, they've got to get goaltending. And to me, I know Carolina the Devils might have the edge in other ways. I definitely think they have the edge in goaltending in this series. And if Markstrom can steal a game or 2, that kind of evens things up.
No, yeah, I'd agree with you on that one. I know goaltending was actually going into the trade period back in early February, goaltending was a topic of conversation through a lot of reporting for Carolina, looking into trying to bring some relief there. They didn't. I don't think they did very much in that. They kind of moved forward with some of the other players, brought in the forwards, but I feel like they probably should put a little bit more effort into that. And kind of like you said, I think that's where New Jersey holds a bit of an edge, and why I feel like can be Carolina's undoing if they're not careful in this series.
So let's take a quick timeout. We'll come back. We'll talk about the coaching matchup. Neil will give some more insight on the power play, and we'll give our official predictions for how we think the series is going to shake out. You're listening to New York State of Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all of the sports. We'll be right back after this.
Are you a Tar Heel, Blue Devil, Demon Deacon, or maybe even a Gamecock? Do you cheer for the Panthers, the Canes, the Crown? And check out the Carolina Sports Update every week with me, Neil Curtis, to get the latest and greatest on all the sports action in the Carolinas. We'll be talking pro sports, ACC and SEC football, basketball, baseball, and everything in between. We'll even talk a little Formula One racing now and again. So, for the best hour of Carolina sports coverage, catch me each week on Carolina Sports Updates with Neil Curtis, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hockey fans, I'm Adam Kernan.
And I'm Zach Puplis.
Together, we are the newest version of Hockey Talk on IE Sports Radio, The Neutral Zone.
Zone.
We love hockey, but we also know it's not everyone's first sport. So we want to make this show as much for new fans as for the diehards.
Whether you can name all the Swedes on the 08 Red Wings Stanley Cup team, or if you can't tell if Varlamov is a goalie or the latest trendy vodka, we're here to help. With facts, figures, and outrageous fans, we bring you all the hard-hitting hockey news you can handle, while still keeping it fun and on the rails. Well, mostly.
So tune in every week as we go around the hockey world, from college to Canada, the minors and the majors, and everywhere in between.
So bring your cellies.
And your one-timers.
You wicked wristas.
And be sure to protect your five-hole.
Catch the Neutral Zone every week on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
We promise not to pick on the Arizona Coyotes every episode.
Welcome back to our special New York State of Sports collaborative episode with Neil from Carolina Sports Update here on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all of the sports. Again, catch Neutral Zone every Tuesday. So they'll actually go live after Devils Hurricanes Game 2, which will be pretty cool. So you want to make sure to check out their insight on that. And, of course, check our Neil show every Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern here on the network. It's a lot of fun. Definitely some good Carolina stuff, transfer portals, crazy stuff. Bill Belichick's got a new quarterback. It's great. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But I want to get into the coaching a little bit. I think this is a really interesting coaching matchup because you got Rod Brindamore, who to me I think is a very underrated coach. But you have a coach now, I think, that people want more results from him. That Carolina gets to a certain point and they kind of fade. Meanwhile, you look at Keefe on the other side, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, coming from a high pressure point in Toronto to a low pressure point in New Jersey, where he's here to kind of be that guy with the experience to help this team grow and build towards something. What do you make? I like Rod Brindamore. What do you make of him as a coach, and how much is he on the hot seat in this postseason, do you think?
Uh, Personally, I hope not. So I am not one of those fans who, gets fed up and frustrated with a team that's made the playoffs in every single one of your coaching seasons. I've been here for 7 years, and all 7 years, the Hurricanes have made the playoffs. So being a longtime suffering Panthers fan as well, and a consistent record of mediocrity in some of our best times, to be honest, and then just a horrible stretch here now of about 5 seasons, not making playoffs or really even sniffing a winning record. When you have a team like the Hurricanes, I can understand from some folks you can get frustrated if you make it to the playoffs and you're getting knocked out in the first or second round. But I'm the type of person you have to take a step back and look around and realize there are, probably there's a good handful of teams, probably 2 handfuls of teams even throughout the league who would kill to have 7 consecutive playoff seasons, to have that opportunity to, go down and watch a playoff game in your on your home ice. And so I'm not the type of person who would put Brenda Moore on a hot seat at this point. You talked about, kind of underrated. Looking back over some his career here as a coach, fastest one to 300 wins in the NHL. Took him 488 games, and then, like I said, he's made the playoffs every year with the Hurricanes as the head coach. So, to me personally, I don't want to say he's doing a fantastic job. Obviously, you want to take that next step. You want to finish it off. I know he wants to as well. He is frustrated with himself. I know the team. Look at Sebastian Aho, also, frustrated with the fact that they are making it to the playoffs, but they're not finishing off that job. So I know there's frustration on the team's part. They want to get to that point. But I'm also not the kind of person who would start calling for a coach or a huge change up with that kind of that level of consistency making the postseason. He before coaching, Brendan Moore was with the Hurricanes as a player, helped them to their first Stanley Cup, and I like that he brings that experience. I like that he has that background. I don't know if you saw, like, son's on the team now as well, so I think I kind of like having that Brendan Moore tie and him being kind of built in to the Hurricanes and being a part of an identity of the Hurricanes.
Yeah, I definitely could see that. I think especially consistency. It was a cool moment for him. Last night, his son, as we record this, his son scored a goal, which was really cool. Skylar Brendan Moore. So that was a fun moment for him. I think for Keith, the issue for me, not really an issue. It's what you do with the personnel around you. And I think I would have loved to see him with this Devil team if they added more at the trade deadline and kind of added some more scoring into the mix. They did make a couple deals, but very minor deals that I don't think made that big of an impact, especially for a team that was building towards something earlier in the year. But to me, I think it's just about, again, the injuries on this team kind of limits the ceiling, but Keith going to get the most out of them. And I think we've seen the impact he's had on Brott, having a great Yuki Isher with 35 goals, definitely more of an impact player, and you're clearly seeing what these two can do together. So that's going to be, I think, the interesting matchup. But Keith's kind of got the veteran playoff coaching experience, I think, can be a factor here. He can't score goals for them, and I think that's the wild card in this. The Devils, since Hughes' injury, are the worst team in the league in 5-on-5 scoring, but 30th in the league. So they got to find a way to generate something in this series. Maybe Keith gets a little bit creative, especially in the playoffs, when you can do day off here or there, 3 days, 2 days off here or there. Maybe they find something, but we'll see. You brought up the power play, so I'll let you talk about that a little bit. This is the Carolina team. Like, I fear them on the power play when you look at Aho, the guy we didn't talk about, and Seth Jarvis, who always seems to make an impact. I remember the Rangers, him tormenting them last year for parts on end in those series. What's been the wild card with the power play? I noticed that since the All-Star break, the guy who led the team in power play goals isn't on the team anymore, in Taylor Hall. So what's the interesting part of the power plays for this team?
Yeah, so I think you mentioned it earlier. Carolina's been number one in the penalty kills, but I think I've lost it here. They've, I think, 22nd in, let's see, where was it? 22nd in power play. So not as strong on their own power play a lot of times. And then reading up on some of this, looking at Carolina's history through the playoffs and their last like 4 outs, it's been a lot of that has come through power play and penalty kills. So where they haven't had really strong penalty kills, they get into the playoffs, and then for some reason they kind of lose that identity. And the previous couple series losses in the playoffs, they've lost them after losing the power play advantage. I think it was like 4-2 against the Rangers, and then 4-2 against the Panthers as well. So those teams, coming through on their power plays 4 times compared to the Hurricanes twice. So it's been interesting to kind of look back through that history and trying to figure out what it is with the Hurricanes when they get into the playoffs, and what happens with that identity of being able to execute the penalty kill at a high rate while capitalizing on their own power plays, which they haven't, for whatever reason, really been able to do over the last couple of playoff appearances. So I think that could be kind of an interesting factor, a key thing to kind of keep an eye on. Like you mentioned, I think New Jersey, you said, was second in penalty kill this season.
Correct.
Yeah. So, that kind of worries me. Like, I know they've had a strong power play through the season, but history, rhymes. Kind of worried about the fact that they lose that power play identity going into this series, and New Jersey's able to capitalize on it with a strong penalty kill.
So when you look at this matchup, let's get into some X factors. What's a player maybe under the radar that you think could make an impact in this series?
So I kind of alluded to him a little bit earlier. Like I said, I really like their trade deadline pickups of Jankowski and Stankoven. Jankowski, in particular, 8 goals over his 19 games here. So, averaging every other game. But going back and looking too, oddly enough, the Hurricanes are 5-1 when he scores. So he's, a little lower down the line. He's not, on their first line or anything like that, but he does make the rotation pretty frequently. I think if he could contribute, get a couple of goals in there, I think that kind of is indicative more of like how Carolina is probably playing that evening, that night, when he's getting going as well. I think that really helps him out. And then Stankoven also, not just what he's had, 5 goals over his 19 games since coming on, but he's also had 4 assists to go with that. So that's, contributed 9 points in total over that time. So I think those 2 guys can be, some kind of key, those guys that just come through, in the pinch where maybe you're not expecting it, and they just get you that critical goal, that critical score. And like, if it wasn't for that, we'll have dropped that game. Maybe they're not the star, maybe they're not, Aho going out there and getting that power play, but they're just coming through at that moment when, I won't say you least expect it, but they're just that dependable, like getting there at the when you're not expecting it, and kind of get that goal for you.
So to me, for Carolina, it would be Andrei Svechnikov. I think you look at him in his career, postseason proven player. And he actually had his playoff high last year at 11 points in the postseason. So when you look at Aho and Jarvis, I think having a guy like Svechnikov that can also both get goals and irritate the opponent. Seeing him a lot with the Rangers last year, how he got on a lot of their nerves during the series. You kind of need those irritants in the postseason. He might be one of them. So I would look out for him. And on the Devils side, Timo Meier, I think, is on a good roll right now. He's got 11 goals in 24 games since the All-Star break. That's tied with Hischier for the most on the team. I think he's going to be an interesting player. Dawson Mercer is another one, along with Eric Haula. Both have 6 goals. You look at the Devils, only 4 players have more than 5 goals since the All-Star break. It's Hischier with 11, Meier with 11, Mercer with 6, and Eric Haula with 6. Mercer's got that interesting center when you look at having Hischier at the top, and then you have Mercer kind of being that emerging player for them. They're, like I said at the top of the show, they're going to need secondary scoring. And if Mercer and Holla can provide that impact along with the top line, that's going to go a long way. And Meyer's another one that when you look at his track record, 28 years old from San Jose, and last year in the postseason, he had a pair of goals. He's got 9 postseason goals in 46 games. So this is a guy that can light the lamp when needed. And he said he could go on big runs as well. Back in 19 with San Jose, he had 10 assists in 20 games. So he can also be a good distributor of the puck as well. So that's 2 players to keep an eye on there. So it's that time. Neil, it's time to put our official thoughts on the airwaves, and sure will change throughout the course of the series after game 1. But before game 1, what is your official prediction for this series?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a tight matchup. You kind of look at, you mentioned before their regular season matchup, 2-2, same scores. I think Canes won 4-2, and I think it was 5-1, and Jersey had the exact same matchup scores. So I think they're very evenly matched. You look back at their history, a lot of really close games or close series. In 19 when Carolina won the series on the last second goal by a stall. New Jersey was on their way, I think, to winning it. Less than 2 minutes left. Carolina was down by 2. Tied it up, thought we were going to go to overtime, and then Stahl scored like literally on the last second of the game and of the series. So it's these guys play each other hard, and it's pretty tight. So I'm thinking a tight series. I'm thinking, they'll go the distance, 4-3, but in favor of the Canes. As long as they can, stick to their guns, keep that offense up, and get that penalty kill going the way they need it to go.
Yeah, I'm going to go Carolina as well. I'm going to go with them in 6. Keep in mind with those, you mentioned 2-2, neither of these teams have played each other since December 28th. So a lot of these teams have switched identities, as we've talked about through the course of the last 30, 40 minutes or so. So that does play a factor. The Devils also are not very good in Raleigh. They've lost 12 of their last 15 in that building, which is not a good sign, I think, going forward for this team. Carolina, although they're not great on the road, they're really good at home. So I'm more likely to see Carolina steal a game at the Prudential Center than to see New Jersey go to Raleigh and steal a game, as I think they've got a really good potential in the future. I think they've got a good Devils to take there might be a couple overtime games in the series. I wouldn't be shocked by that. But I'm going to take the Hurricanes in 6 to win this series and advance to play either Washington or Montreal, the surprise of the season for them. So before we let you go, Neil, tell listeners out there what's going on with your show. Again, Carolina Sports Update every Monday at 5 Eastern. Your social media is on the screen, but what can fans expect tuned into your show, not just for hockey talk, but other Carolina sports as well?
Hey, yeah. Thanks again for having me on here. I'll say one last closing thing on this. For I think both of us, good news is typically the winner of this series, I think every time has gone on to the Stanley Cup final, if I'm reading my history correctly. So I think it's bodes well for either one of us. Whoever I think takes this series has a really good shot at making it to the finals. So good news there for this matchup, I think, no matter which side you're sitting on. So, the Carolina Sports Update. We got a lot going on. I'm excited. We got the Panthers. It's off season for pro football, but we do have the draft coming up next week, so pretty excited there. Spring transfer portal opened up for UNC football and for college football. UNC's, I think, been making the most amount of noise. Bill Belichick getting to work and doing a lot of work there. And that's going both directions for transfers, really. We've been bringing in some folks from other schools, but there's also been a pretty large exodus, I think, from Carolina. Some people weren't really expecting. Lost right tackle, and lost one of our best edge defenders, our sack leader from last year. I think he had 7.5 sacks. Is now looking to transfer, or is in the transfer portal as well. It honestly was one of my thoughts / concerns with Belichick coming in is the mentality that he brings in, the kind of very focused workman-like mentality, and how that was going to mesh with the current roster and with honestly 18-year-old college kids. So a lot of stuff going on there. And then we're hitting spring sports hard. A lot of good ACC, SEC action in baseball and softball both. Playoffs for those will be heating up here soon. And we're looking forward to it. I know summer's going to be a bit of a lull, but we've got some good off-season stuff and some good minor league action going on too. Charlotte Knights are off to a really good start this year, so be looking to dive a little bit deeper into that. USL, Super League, women's hockey, and men's hockey as well. All good stuff going on. A lot of fun stuff to kind of keep up with, keep tabs on, especially if you're in the area, if you're in state, and you're able to get out to, what I feel like can be some of the most fun are these minor league teams where, ticket price is a lot cheaper, but you're also like a lot of fun. They come up with a lot of really good stuff. So I think it's a fun time to be following sports in the Carolinas.
Definitely be sure to check out Neil's show again every Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern. But I think overall, really good series to watch. It's going to be a lot of fun. Neil and I are going to try to do one more of these at some point, whether it's after 2 games, after how many games, whatever. Hopefully we'll get a chance to do this again. Hope you guys enjoy this recording as well. It's a lot of fun. We're going to be trying doing this too for the NBA here. We got our good buddy Christian over at Gritsville that we had on last week. Look out for another appearance from him at some point during Knicks Pistons, which starts on Saturday. It's not as big locally this time around. Last year we had 3 teams that we were profiling, but we get 2 teams in the NFL draft, so it's even better here in New York. But again, strong series. Both these teams very good track records, at least in Carolina's case. New Jersey's at least back where they belong after getting into the postseason a couple of years ago. Off year last year. Wish they would have had Jack Hughes with this group, but nevertheless, a chance for Nico Hischier, Jesper Bratt to really make big stages on a big moment like the Stanley Cup playoffs. And you never know what's going to happen. You never know what games are going to go to quadruple overtime, and who's going to be that hero and get that big moment. Who's going to steal games in net? That's going to be the fun part. So again, stay tuned for that throughout the course of the series. It's been a lot of fun talking about pal Neil over here. Again, we both share the great. So we'll definitely both have reactions to Game 1 on our shows on Monday. Thanks to Larry B and all the IE Sports Radio team for, of course, supporting the show. Thanks to our sponsors, Planet Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, Vital Apparel, Seal the Deal Wax Seals, and of course, Raw Nutrition Supplements. Be sure to check all of those great companies out. So for Neil, for Larry, and for all of our IE Sports Radio team, I'm Ricky K saying have a great rest of your day. Enjoy Game 1 of Devils Hurricanes. We'll be back here next time.